panelists will do it right from us. When I shook hands with the president from Guta, he says, Makola is here today on UCC campus. The policy analyst is here. The chartered economist, one and only in our UCC, the voice of UCC, Professor Gatsi is here. And then the economic policy modeling expert. And the rest of us, you and I, who are basically the ones who bear the big burden as far as the exchange rate is concerned. And all of you students who discuss this in the classroom, I'm sure you've been exposed to some of these theories, but want to understand the issues very well. So the opportunity will be given to all of us basically to understand the issues. And ultimately, we want to come out with the solutions as much as possible that we can share with the managers of this economy. So it's in the end, we're thinking about a Ghana that is prosperous, a Ghana that, we can say beyond aid, we can live, we can survive beyond aid, a prosperous nation that will all not be spectators, but citizens. I'm hoping that we'll have a very fruitful deliberation. Thank you and welcome.
Yes, and that was the Dean of the School of Economics, Dr. Armah, giving the purpose for today's discussion and also giving out the mode of program for today's discussion here. The theme is the fight against the highly volatile exchange rate in Ghana. What are we missing? And that's what we'll be talking about, yes, today right here. We have a number of people here who'll be talking about a number of things here, giving out presentations on the exchange rate and the Ghanaian economy, the rate volatility and trade, exchange rate and the financial market, and also governance rather, and the financial sector.
I didn't know that I will be speaking first. Well, I think the issue about depreciation is well known. Students of international finance are aware that when the inflation rate in your country compared to countries whose currency you demand is higher than those countries over a period of time, your currency will suffer depreciation. It is also true that because depreciation is a cost, has a pass-through effect in building up prices over time, the graph of depreciation or appreciation will have to mimic the curvature of inflation over time. And when that relationship or alignment is not there, then there is a problem. We will need to check what is going on. We have discussed various issues about depreciation.
And that is the head of finance of the School of Business, Professor John Gatsi, will give the first presentation on the exchange rate, governance, and the financial sector. This is the first among four of the presentations.
To deal with issues relating to why the Bank of Ghana, over all this time period, has not been able to deal with the issue of depreciation. I think by law, the Bank of Ghana is tasked to ensure price stability, including the currency. But there are many factors that affect the currency. Most of the factors that do affect the currency are not under the control of the Bank of Ghana. But we ask the Bank of Ghana to ensure price stability. For example, Bank of Ghana does not force it on the government of Ghana to overborrow to the tune of having a parity between the component of domestic debt against foreign debt. And you know, when you are going to do repayment, you will need foreign currency to do so. I do not think that Bank of Ghana imposed it on the government of Ghana. Bank of Ghana did not impose it on the government of Ghana to look at your agricultural policy, not to feed and coordinate with management of monetary policy. Because if you are importing a lot of agricultural produce, definitely that should be an alignment between agricultural policy and the general framework of monetary policy and fiscal policy management. It is not the Bank of Ghana who has the government of Ghana, and when I say government of Ghana, I do not mean the current government alone, not to align policies effectively. Of course, we do know fiscal policy is under the purview of the government of Ghana. It is not the Bank of Ghana that limit the powers and the ability of the government of Ghana to collect less revenue against expenditure. But when all these things do happen, in fact, again, it is not the Bank of Ghana who say that we should not make our environment very competitive to allow the energies of our young people into entrepreneurial and productive activity, that to keep the economy growing in an inclusive manner, so that all the time we are creating opportunity for revenue generation for the country. I do not think that it is the fault of Bank of Ghana. Again, it is not the Bank of Ghana that says that if you are not able to mobilize revenue, then you fall on the Bank of Ghana to borrow, which at the long run get to what we call scout dominance, which the IMF tried to stop by asking us to come out with a new law and ensure that we have zero borrowing from the Bank of Ghana. But because we feel if we do that, it will be very difficult for us. When we are going to enact the law, we managed to put in 5% borrowing from the central bank. But when we do all these things and they affect the currency or the performance of the currency, we come back to the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana has some solution, which I think is a myth. There is the need for coordination in terms of policy and programs to ensure that the monetary policy management role of Bank of Ghana is performed without it being undermined by fiscal policy management and other policy deficiencies. So I believe when we go to the discussion in full, I will bring in more of the things that I think I need to bring on board. The issue, again, is, do we have only one factor affecting depreciation? The answer definitely is no. But from time to time, some of the factors will show up as prominent affecting the currency, and we will need to deal with that. If we look at the balance of payment development for 2015 to 2018 as captured by the Bank of Ghana, it is very clear that our export destinations are very limited. And we need to diversify our export destination if one of the factors is low export revenue. If one of the factors is low export revenue, then we will need to work assiduously to ensure value addition process across the value chain in agriculture, in our mineral sector, etc., to add more value to our exports. But I think we are working at a snail pace in this direction. The same thing applies to the destination of our traditional exports. They are also very limited. It means much more work is needed to ensure diversified destination of our export. If you think that import is one of the factors affecting depreciation, then this is where policy is very important. All these things cannot solve themselves. It is when we put in robust and committed policy to address them. Of course, if we look at the balance of payment development by Bank of Ghana, it shows that there are some produce that we should be producing ourselves. For example, in 2018, we spent about $339 million to import rice. And we know about 10 years ago, we have specific rice policy. What is the reason? Of course, some people will read many reasons to it. Some people will say that the very people who import in the import business over the past 40 years are the same people who finance political parties. So, if you are going to ensure that you reduce rice import drastically, it means that you are using a knife to, affect the very people who put you in power. And some people believe that where we get our assistance in terms of loan and support from, some of these people are major rice producers. So it is not in their interest to ensure that we drastically reduce rice importation. The same thing applies to sugar. Not only sugar, insecticides, etc. We spend about $154 million to import insecticides to the country. These are the things that our research institutions, when we galvanize their effort very well, at least we can produce some of these things in the country to limit our import. So we can continue to talk about import, all right. But policy is the answer to the issue of import. Of course, we also do know that as we develop as a nation, investment in foreign currency has become an investment vehicle or investment asset. Therefore, speculation becomes very strong. Of course, speculation is not anything bad. It is just an opportunity to use information available, data available, to predict what the direction of exchange rate would take in order to make money. So speculation is not a crime, but it has become part of us, and we can count it as a contributory factor to the development of exchange rate in the country. So I think I will stop here and allow the rest of my colleagues.
And I'll start with Professor Gatsi. Prof, we seem to have a global audience. This time I want you to speak English to let people understand this cyclical development of Ghana's currency. I think you have a mic there.
Well, I think I explained some of the factors earlier on. But what I think we need to be looking at, in terms of export, we already explained that the export is limited. We need to diversify. We need to add more value. We need to get new export destinations. And we also, at the same time, need to deepen our domestic production so that some of the things in the import basket are produced here. But there is something very critical. You can increase export to whatever level. But if the demand on foreign currency is very high, no matter the level of export, you will still have problems. Now, you take a situation where people are buying dollar-denominated houses in Ghana. Now, these people are working in Ghana. They don't generate forests. So anytime they are going to pay, they are going to look for forests to pay. And there are many activities that we engage in Ghana which does not generate forests. But we are forced at the end of the day to look for a foreign currency to pay for our bills. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to look at all these things together. You work on export to increase your export volumes, value addition, export revenue, but you must also control activities within the economy that do not generate forests, but force people to pay bills in foreign currency.
Okay, so start putting your questions there, because I know that you wish that he elaborates on this, but for the time that I have at my disposal, let me go to Makola to look at Dr. Obeng. So, Dr. Obeng, help us to understand the impact of this rapid fluctuation of the cedi in our economy, practically.
Yeah. As I was saying, the fluctuation itself is also a deterrent factor because we are into serious competition. If there's stability, then of course we are doing fair trading. It means that most of you will be pricing almost the same. But if at the time my goods came, the exchange rate have gone up, so my duty payment is even higher than my competitors, then I'm being edged out. So these are some of the issues. I told you that normally what we have to do at times like this, when the fluctuations are rampant, is to hold up our stock. But then also, we are also challenged because your capital may be borrowed. The banks may be on your neck to pay. So at this stage, you will be forced to sell at the price that your competitors are selling, rather than doing prudent business by holding up or increasing. Naturally, we pass on these costs to our consumers, but then you cannot also overprice yourself out of the market. Thank you.
So, Courage, we do seem, and of course, in your presentation, I didn't have that sense that any of you, Professor Gatsi, know you were trying to hold any brief for the Bank of Ghana, but we believe sincerely that the Bank of Ghana has the expertise, and we must fall on.
It is a fact that the Bank of Ghana is an independent institution mandated to ensure price stability. But Bank of Ghana cannot do all this work without effective collaboration. For example, Bank of Ghana cannot comb all the areas of Accra where these, underground economic activities are taking place, shadow economy system where people move currency into the country and move it out at the time that they want, affecting the performance of the currency. We need effective collaboration. And if we all agree to do that, we will support the Bank of Ghana to do so. If we are giving out our domestic contract in foreign currency, definitely you are weakening the effort of Bank of Ghana. So it is a collaboration. If we agree that we want to collaborate and do all those things, it will be done. Yeah, the Foreign Exchange Act is there for Bank of Ghana to use, but Bank of Ghana is not a police officer. So they will need all other state actors. If we determine that we want to do what is right, we will do it.
Okay, so let's have your opinions, your comments, your questions, and we have 2 microphones down there with you. Please, you mention your name, your department, and then your concern.
Thank you very much. My name is Soa Boy. I work here, not in this room, but UCC. We all know that Ghana recently exited IMF policies. Have you really exited? 2, how soon are you going to get back to IMF? 3, what will make us go back to IMF? Thank you very much.
My name is Kwabena Bonfe Jr. I'm a student at the School for Development Studies. My question is to our panelists, I think all of them, from their various presentations. It is clear that the critical economic decisions that have to be taken are political, or must be political, or must be built on some political decision making. What suggestions do they have for the political thinkers and managers of the country? And secondly, I think there is something I read somewhere about perverse integration, which has to do with the criminal economy, what goes on in the underworld. I didn't see how that can also affect currency depreciation. Maybe you may want to touch on that. Thank you very much.
And so it's time for questions and further discussions here at the roundtable discussion. So people, the audience here asking questions to the panel members so that they can give further answers to those questions.
What has caused the Bank of Ghana to have a deficit in their reserves? That's my first question. And the second question is, why are contracts not being given to local contractors since foreign contractors are keeping our current account in deficit? And also to our doctor from Guta, he said that there is lack of adherence to the policies of the nation. What is being done about it, and what has been done so far?
Hello. My name is Alfredo in JMV, School of Business, Become Finance, level 200. I think I've taken note of Prof. Gachi's comment, and I want to make this comment and also ask this question. A time ago, I watched this documentary where a man from Singapore said that for them to have kept corruption, it began from the top. Now we are in Ghana where our leaders are watching small-scale mining going into the hands of foreigners, where hotels are being charged in dollars and other currencies. Services are also being charged in other currencies, and also real estate. When you go to Accra, we know what is happening over there. Now, in terms of value addition, we have Kantanka Motors, we have shoes made in Ghana, we have textile print. How come our leaders are watching the foreigners take over the parts which I've mentioned and also not doing anything about the value added things that we've had and always importing? And at the look of it, when we glance around, they're almost 90% wearing stuff from foreigners. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Let's hold on with the questions. We have 4 so far to respond to. Let's start with Alfred's question. I don't know who will handle the last question from Alfred. Alfred is talking about value addition and the fact that we seem to have local production. So what is actually happening? Okay.
Thank you. The issue for me is not solely about value added. We've been adding value to our products, and the issue is, what are the kind of things that we produce? Is there the external market for them? Right? So if we produce goods that we can have external market for them, then of course it will not be difficult for us to keep on adding the value. The other thing is, you talk about us wearing foreign whatever. I made a point about our tastes and preferences, the demand for goods that we tend to go for. We as a country and as a people have decided, whichever way, to enjoy what we do not produce. Indeed, if you go to the shop and you find a shoe made in Kumasi, shoe made in Italy, I'm sure the questioner will settle on shoes made in Italy, because you think that is good, it is quality, or it's of quality than the made in Kumasi. So until we change, we make that conscious effort to change our tastes and preferences for foreign goods, it becomes difficult for us to contend with. And don't forget that once you prefer foreign goods to your local goods, you are not helping to grow local industries. And therefore, it has that rippling effect. Okay? So you find out in the general equilibrium setting, all the various sectors of the economy will be affected. And particularly because it's about import, your exchange rate will come under pressure. Okay? So we have to make that conscious effort. Maybe through the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade and Industry and Ministry of Information, to carry out serious education so that people begin to appreciate what we have and to use them. And so you recall that during President Kufuor's era, there was this Friday wear made in Ghana. And I'm sure if today were to be Friday, I don't think I would be in this. I would have been in the Friday way. So this is the sort of thing I'm referring to. We should keep on. And then we'll find that some of these things will be catered for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, Doc, if we're going to patronize it just once a week, I wonder the level of progress we're going to make. Courage, you want to make addition?
That could be a starting point. And so he started it with us. And so we need to develop, build on it.
Okay.
Have we? We haven't.
So, Courage, 100% correct. But it is warped logic to jump from that to a conclusion that if there is a depreciation of the exchange rate, then the fundamentals must be weak. That defies logic. There could be, I'm trying to get your question. Your question is never coming. So I'm sorry, I can't read that thesis. It's a long one. Okay, so Prof, would you kindly respond to the inability of politicians to implement policy?
Yeah, I want to link that to the exit from the IMF.
Okay.
think what I found very interesting about this current IMF program that we just exited is that it came with a lot of instruments to guide us. We were able to be forced to put in place the Public Financial Management Act. Then we were told that some of the sections in the Public Financial Management Act, especially from Section 12, which borders on fiscal responsibility and oversight by the Fiscal Council, should not be integral part of the Public Financial Management Act. So we need to put a new act in place, which we are calling the Fiscal Responsibility Act. A council have been put in place to monitor. But the issue is that even though we exit the IMF program, I would say it's an agreement that with an exit clause. So we have actually come to an end. But that does not mean that we are out of the activities of IMF, because we are a member of what we call Article 4, which define membership of IMF. So what it means is that from time to time, IMF will come and look at our books and make comment about our behavior, whether we are going back to the old behavior. So it shouldn't gratify anybody to think that IMF was a burden to us, so we are now out of the clause of IMF, so we are going to do things. Let us remember that IMF has left with us rules and regulations. When we follow, I don't think that we can come back to a situation where we will be going back to IMF. So that is very important. But linked to the issue of politicians, you will realize that even with the Public Financial Management Act, we are flouting it. So there is no guarantee that because you put a council in place, the council is going to advise and somebody will take the advice. In law, we say advice is advice. So that is where we need to show our political commitment to the rules we have agreed and put in place to ensure that we discipline ourselves physically, we discipline ourselves in terms of debt management. There are a lot of issues in the Public Financial Management Act that when we do, for example, we need to back our borrowing with sinking fund. And when we do that, the risk to the investor is reduced, and the use of foreign currency, when it is not planned for to pay debt, will also be minimized. So when we commit ourselves to all that we agree to, I believe we will not come back to the level of going back to the IMF. But the point is that we have not actually gone out of the control of the IMF. What is needed is political commitment, which we are not seeing in the implementation of a public procurement law. We are not seeing that. We are not seeing that in a lot of public, financial management laws in the country. And that is the reason why when you read the Auditor's General's report, you still find the same things that we complained about 10 years ago, the same things are happening. So the commitment is what is left for us. And when we get that, I think we will sail through.
Please let's appreciate what they've shared with us. We'll give 10 more minutes for about 4 of your questions. There was a question to you.
And these banks are networked such that if somebody put money in Nigeria, say Nigeria, you can come to Ghana and withdraw the money in cedis here. So those people who trade in money, they will, if they see the differentials in the forex and it favors them, they will just put the money in their country and then just come here and withdraw the money, go to the black market, buy the money, and just transport it as if we are trading in commodities. They trade the currencies as if we are trading in yams and all that. They buy the currency and then transport it. Did you see some Lebanese who have packed a lot of dollars into a car tire and they're moving it out? This is what I've been saying, that we need monitoring of these things. Only yesterday or so, about $1.4 million was being transported out of the country without going through the transfer system. I'm against any policy that restricts the trade of money. And that is why the Forest Bureau system is very welcome to the trading community. But then, you cannot also leave the Forest Bureau to do whatever they want to do. Then, you have to ensure that they abide by the rules as set up by the Bank of Ghana before licenses were given and all that. To go a long way to checking dumping into the system. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So I think we had, you want to make an addition, very brief.
Well, I think there is a general difficulty in using the investment laws to deal with some of these things. We have made our investment law very incentive-driven, such that it is legal for somebody to bring his money to the country, work, and repatriate his profit. There's no illegality about that. So if we think that these laws are becoming inimical to managing our currency, that we have to look at it. Brazil did it some time ago, and they bring some limitation as to when, how much at a given time that you can repatriate your legally earned money in the country. So these are the things we should be thinking about. But when we are thinking about that, we should also be minded that there is something in investment law or international investment we call stability clauses. When the people are coming into the country, they are promised that when they come, they will work and repatriate their money. So that is expected to be stable over a period of time. So if you want to trigger against it, you must go about it, very careful. That is the reason why in 2010 we set up a committee to review some of these issues in the mining sector. Up to now, we are not hearing anything because of the stability clauses in our agreement. So we will need to look at all this and see how it will affect the inflow of foreign direct investment and the impact that it will make.
So, Prof, if we are looking at triggering the law, what should be the duration? Within how many, what kind of space must we give to ourselves to look at this law?
The point that is in the law, you have not changed the law, so you cannot be doing something different.
And we can't touch that clause?
So I think that is the reason why the government some time ago was doing moral suasion, was trying to appeal to telcos and the rest to engage with them, how they transfer. That is what is available now. But if you want to use the investment law, you'll be going against the law. I am told that when you make a call, you are contributing about 70% to the profit of the telcos. And what it means is that any call that we make, we are contributing to a certain demand on foreign currency to be repatriated from the country. So these are the things that we should package very well and now revisit our investment laws and see what we can do so that we'll be into. Remember, some of the investments in the country are so big that they represent a whole country. The moment you touch them, you are touching a country. So it becomes a diplomatic issue. So we need to bear all these things in mind when we proffer solutions to some of these things.
Thank you. That sounds like diplomatic immunity for some of them. Wow. So those of you who are here, please, why don't you send them onto the online platform? Because we can't take all. If you send them onto the online platform, at least we'll have the privilege of asking them. So just go to Facebook, search for ATLFM 100.5, and then post your question there. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Dr. Inseidu. I'm thinking, in addition to thinking about rethinking the investment laws of the country, I'm also thinking that government must be proactive in encouraging Ghanaians living abroad. Because we've realized that remittance inflows for over 2 decades have outstripped ODA, which means there is money out there. There are Ghanaians with the expertise. If we encourage them to bring their monies, their resources home to come and invest, and then compete with these foreign investors in the country, I think in a way it would help solve this problem of profit repatriation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. My name is Kofi Ankuma Hagan. I'm not an economic guru like Professor Gatsi, but the few years I've followed the Ghanaian economic trend. What I've realized is that this fragility of our currency is due to the fact that managers of our economy over the years have not been fiscally disciplined. That's the reason why once in a while we have to go to our headmaster, the IMF, to ensure with the cane over our heads that we cut our coats according to the size of our cloths. And even whilst we were in the IMF program, at the tail end of it, we saw the statistics that was shown to us just the first quarter of this year. The kind of fluctuation that we saw, even when we were still under the watchful eyes of our headmaster, the IMF. That is why I was so sad yesterday, less than probably 12 hours after we exited the IMF program. Our economic management team, led by the vice president himself, held a media encounter to openly tell Ghanaians that we've left IMF and we are beginning to do exactly the opposite of what the IMF, our headmaster, teaches us not to do. Yes, we need more revenue, and we also need to spend within our means. Only one policy: cut down import duties. That means by reduction in the import duties.
So, sir, would you please make a summary?
My summary is that from what I watched on TV yesterday, I can predict that by the end of, even by the middle of this year, our cedi is going to go past 6 Ghana cedis because we are reducing our revenue through the reduction of import duties.
Thank you.
And in this political year, definitely we are going to embark on excessive spending, and it is going to take us far, far worse than the HIPC era.
So, Mr. Ankoma, I think your fifth presentation doesn't need any response. So let's quickly take 2 more and then we'll be done. It's rather unfortunate we can't take all of you. We have a hand down here, and his hand has been up for too long.
Thank you very much, moderator. Yes, first of all, my name is Edward Nunu, Oil and Gas. I want to commend the organizers for putting up such a brilliant and insightful program like this. Unfortunately, I don't know whether we have representatives coming from the Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance, or any of its agencies here, but they couldn't come. So what are we missing in the fight against this highly volatile exchange rate in Ghana? First of all, the first thing we are missing is that none of them is here. And I don't know whether we are going to get a communique to them. Probably, yeah. Second, it appears from all the presenters, it appears that Ghanaians tend to be lovers of the dollar. The man from Abosokan was quoting in dollars. If you go to Abosok, from Makola was quoting in dollars, Abosokan, they will quote in dollars. Even academic institutions cannot be spared from this. Admission requirement, you go there, you see, they are quoting in dollars to foreigners, foreign students. And when the impact of the dollar begins to sink, in the context of Ghana, they say when the city begins to sing boboli bobo, the response that the way we address or respond to this city depreciation is not very encouraging, in the sense that we approach it from a very political, or the political mindset, where we tend to politicize the whole issue without addressing the issues involved. Now, we are injecting the Eurobond into these. And as we are all aware, if you inject the money into this, it's for a short period. The effect is that very soon the fundamentals will not hold. The question is, how are we going to get these honorable suggestions that, or comments that are coming from these experts back to the people who matters? And the people who matter are basically the politicians. Okay. And as Professor Gatsi rightly said, we need a political will. We need to enforce these policies that can actually address this situation. And I think that if you're able to communicate this to them, it will go a long way to address some of these issues. Thank you,
Mr. Nunu. Mr. Nunu, we have rapporteurs right in your midst, Dr. William Kanta, Dr. Joshua Sibu, and Dr. Irajua Ewusi. They're putting up a comprehensive statement, and that will be presented to the right authority, so be assured. Let me have the last question.
Hello? Yeah, I'm on board. My name is Kulu Evans.
Sorry, but our time is up. I'm sorry. And I will give, so Adam, may I have the microphones? I'll give our panel each just a minute to make a last statement. A few messages from our online audience. We'll just read them without any response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As I presented, clearly we have some work to do as a country. The most important thing is for us to know what to do. And if we know what to do and we are committed in doing it, I'm sure we'll be able to nip those situations in the back. I hesitate to say this because governments themselves are also part of the problem. Our government purchases are heavily laden with imports. So clearly, government is also a problem, part of the problem. And so my hope is that as we put our heads together and make the communique, government will listen to us and take some of the advices that we give. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the question from the gentleman about excessive importation. Let me tell you that manufacturing is never complete unless it reaches out to the final consumer. The local manufacturers, manufacturing entities that are here, they are waste. We buy it and sell it to the consumer, and then we import the shortfall that the locals could not produce. Is it even not necessary? As we are entering into middle income, our consumers, and that is you, your consumption pattern has changed to the extent that sometimes what we produce here, you do not even want it. There are also the manufacturers themselves. They do not behave in a manner that we will tilt towards them. Their pricing is way over the price that we outsource from outside. And I don't blame them, because there is a thin line between manufacturing and then importation. Because the seeming manufacturing that we do here about 95% of the input of production is also imported. And so, who is importing who? The only seeming manufacturing, if we all take it serious, will be the 1D, 1F that the government is introducing, because that one is primarily depending on the local raw materials. And so if we're able to do that, then we are going somewhere. So that's for your question. And then the questionnaire here said, Abusukai, we sell in dollars. No, we cannot sell our goods in dollars, but you cannot also fault us to benchmark our prices with dollars. Thank you.
Interesting. Just a quick comment to something that came from the back there, and then just I'll tie in my concluding remarks. The port reforms that was announced yesterday. Well, I personally also have my issues with it, but let's not belittle this. There is a slide I didn't show about the way forward. And then one of the things I said is the ability or the willingness to take the bold decisions. Look, competitiveness is what we're talking about here. If all the ports surrounding you are far more competitive, their charges are much less, what you get is the kind of diversion of stuff and the smuggling. Goods inbound to Ghana goes through Lome, goes through Abidjan, go through all the other places and get smuggled to Ghana. And we forfeit the revenue after all. But if you take the bold decision to hit revenue now, but then in the future or in the near term, say 3-6 month time, that could actually encourage more inflows, more containers into the port. You will make up for those revenue losses, and you need that competitiveness to go forward. Those are some of the bold decisions we need to take. And just to say that a lot of the things we need to do to solve the currency problems are not the quick fixes. They are the long-term, enduring solutions. He just talked about 1D, 1F. Imagine a factory in every district, adding value to local resources in those districts, and then targeting export. I discovered to my surprise that since between 2000 and now, when we've been under this AGOA program and exporting to the US for free, or virtually free, we have a negative trade balance between US and us. When even there are no limitations, what are some of the things we export? Cassava, cocoa, processed cocoa stuff, and then beverages and all of that to the US, fruit and all of that. This we can produce. This we have the land to produce. But we need someone to motivate. If just by mentioning that we want to set up a car assembly plant could attract car giants to come into the country, if we target sectors, that we could sell out to the market, that there is money awash on the international market that people, venture capitalists, private investors can come in and take advantage of. It is about selling the idea. And while doing so, we should be mindful we don't give them too much concessions that will come to hurt us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Courage. Professor Gatsi.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think I want to focus on the missing link, what we have been missing. What we've been missing is the political will to do what is supposed to be done. Then the next one is we need a leadership that will drive the people. For example, we know that in every country which is democratic, they have the right to import and do whatever they want to do. But they have some selected items that they all attach to. That is what we should be doing in Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gatsi. Please let's appreciate the panel for this morning, afternoon's engagement. We have received a lot for them, and it's quite interesting that they reserve the best for the last, the missing link. I would want to invite the chair for his closing remarks, and for those of you who joined us late, the chair